If you want to be a gunslinger, you can't just be any geek off the street. You gotta be handy with the iron, if you know what I mean. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, starting a new class guide. Today, going over the Lore Master's Guide to the Pathfinder Gunslinger. We are going to learn to reach out and touch somebody. And before we start going over what exactly is in this build, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there to hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or, if you've already listed yourself on such a legendary roster, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's actually go ahead and just get right on into this. We have a fair bit to cover today for this particular build. Actually, there is a note that I should mention here. Because the Gunslinger is focused on, well, guns, firearms, black powder weaponry, if your DM decides that they don't want this in the game because it goes against the overall aesthetic that's built into whatever game world you're playing in, then, you know, obviously this class is nixed. But I'm assuming you're here because your DM has already given you the approval, and we're just going to go ahead and run with that assumption. So now, when it comes to the Gunslinger, there are a couple of races that come to mind that are really going to be handy for you. And first and foremost is one that is going to apply to probably almost every class, and that's the humans. They get a +2 bonus to any stat, so you're going to want to throw this into your dexterity. You get a bonus feat and bonus skill points. Absolutely very, very handy for you to have, and don't forget that your favored class traits, you know, you can add into your hit points, your skill points, and even into your overall grit point pool, and grit points will come up later on. The next option that we have is the Asura spawn, a Tiefling. Now, this is a specific version of a Tiefling that gets you a +2 bonus to your dexterity and wisdom scores and a -2 to your intelligence. You also gain dark vision out to 60 feet, which is going to be incredibly useful for you in night fighting. You substitute out your normal skill bonuses for a +2 to appraise and knowledge local, which, you know, not bad. Not going to be the most inherently useful thing, but still not bad. It's a bonus. And once a day, you can use the Hideous Laughter as a spell-like ability, and it works exactly like the spell does. You also gain cold, electricity, and fire resistance of 5, so you'll take 5 damage straight off the top of any of those damage types. Don't forget that you also gain a tail as a Tiefling, and with a feat, you can use this to help you with, say, I don't know, reloading your firearms. So definitely a hugely useful option for you to go with. And then lastly, for our third and final option, we have Hobgoblins, which are going to net you a +2 to your dexterity and your constitution score. You also get that ever useful dark vision out to 60 feet. You also gain an inherent +4 racial bonus to stealth. I would say consider taking Engineer, which will get you a +2 racial bonus on craft, alchemy, and knowledge engineering, or Authoritative, +2 racial bonus on diplomacy and intimidate. Now, which of these options you go with is going to just kind of depend on how you set up your stats, because other than dexterity and wisdom and constitution, everything else is somewhat flexible for you. As when it comes to your stats overall, like I said, dexterity and wisdom are going to be your top 2 most important. Dexterity, on top of just being a prime stat that affects your initiative, your armor class, several of your skills, your reflex saving throws, is also going to affect your ability to hit in combat with firearms, and through your class abilities, affect how much damage you deal. Wisdom is going to go into your grit pool, which you spend grit on deeds, and deeds are other abilities that you gain as you level and advance through the Gunslinger. Not only that, but Gunslingers don't have great will saves, and so getting a good wisdom score will help shore up that particular weakness. Constitution's going to be important because you're a combat-oriented character, and you're definitely going to be taking some return fire or people coming in to hit you. From here, which stat you dumpster just kind of depends. Strength, intelligence, or charisma. Strength, we're not going to be looking to engage in melee at all, so it's fine if this one gets dropped down. So it comes down to intelligence and charisma as to which ones you want to focus on, and this may affect choices like the different alternate options that the Hobgoblins come with. Bear in mind, this array assumes that you're doing a 25-point buy for your stats and does not take into account any stat modifiers. If you're rolling your stats, say 46, or you're doing some combination of rolling and point buy, then follow this general guide here. And then after stats, we're going to come on to our traits. And the first trait we have on offer here is Spirits in the Stone, and this applies if you're selecting Human as your Gunslinger. This will give you a +2 trait bonus to initiative and a +1 trait bonus to saves against traps and natural hazards. It's mostly that initiative that we're looking for, but you know what? A +1 bonus to saving against traps and natural hazards, definitely take it, because it's going to come up as being handy at some point. Then the other option I'd recommend would be Veteran of Battle, which gives you a +1 initiative bonus and allows you to draw your weapon as a free action during a surprise round. So this is even if you're caught off guard, you can still do this. Definitely a handy thing to have, and helps to keep you a little bit more active and ready to go when you would otherwise be thoroughly at a disadvantage. We're going to now move on to class abilities. So for the start of your class abilities, you're going to be proficient with all simple and martial weapons, and firearms and light armor. So this will give you a wide array of options there, and say if you wanted to have a gunslinger that had a decent strength score, you could go to town with some different martial weapons. You could bring out a mace, a battle axe, longsword, or if you have a rapier handy, you can mesh that with your using your higher dexterity score, pick up the weapon finesse feat, and still go to town and be relatively effective in melee. And then at first level, you're going to get Gunsmith, which will gain you a blunderbuss, musket, or pistol with the battered condition that only you can use. You also gain the gunsmithing feat for free. So the fact that this is something that only you can use makes it handy, because for anybody else, this is going to have the broken condition, which is going to make it very, very, very difficult for them to try to turn on you. Now, this isn't rated, it's a good ability, but it's not rated higher, because you're either going to end up fixing this firearm or getting a better one as you progress. And depending on the relative level of technology available to you for firearms, you may be upgrading to an actual proper rifle, maybe a single shot breech loading rifle, but still a rifle, or even a pistol. So definitely a great starter. Definitely gives you a little bit of an edge, especially if somebody manages to get your firearm, but it's going to be quickly replaced, and gunsmithing is definitely a handy feat for you. And then also at first level, you gain grit. You gain a number of grit equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain grit by getting either critical hits with a firearm or landing a killing blow with one. And at the start of each day, as long as you've gotten your proper amount of rest, you are going to regain all of your grit points anyway. So make careful use of them, but definitely use your grit points. And then we will also gain deeds. Deeds cost grit, allowing the gunslinger to perform an array of feats and effects. Deeds are going to be the bulk of where your abilities come from, and are going to produce most of the effects that you're going to be relying on throughout combat. And then at second level, you gain nimble. You gain a +1 dodge bonus to your armor class when in light or no armor, and increases by 1 every 4 levels, maxing out at a +5 by the time you hit level 20. And then at level 4, you start gaining bonus feats. You gain a bonus feat now and every 4 levels after, and this must be either a combat feat or a grit feat. And then at 5th level, you gain gun training. You select one type of firearm, blunderbuss, rifle, musket, etc. And the gunslinger now gets to add their dexterity modifier to damage with this type of firearm. And misfire values increase by 2 instead of 4. And every 4 levels after, the Gunslinger selects another type of firearm and applies these bonuses to it as well. So, cranking up your dexterity score and boosting that modifier will absolutely help you increase your damage output. And I should also note at this point, this is where a lot of guides online really recommend that you kind of finish running with the class and start multi-classing into other things like fighter, ranger, rogue, because at this point, other than accessing more kinds of deeds, you're not going to be getting many other class abilities out of it. So definitely it's something to keep in mind and consider, but for now this guide is going to be assuming that you're running full Gunslinger. And finally, we cap things off with your capstone ability at level 20, and that's True Grit. The Gunslinger may now select 2 deeds they have access to and that require grit to perform. They cost 1 less grit to perform now. If the cost is reduced to 0, the deed may then be performed as long as the Gunslinger has 1 grit point. If it could already be performed in that manner, could be performed continuously so long as you had 1 grit point, and you take True Grit for it, that deed may now be performed even when the Gunslinger has 0 grit. So definitely useful, definitely handy, but a little bit disappointing as far as capstone abilities go. But you know what, if you've made it this far, it still is handy and still helps you make good use of your grit pool. And honestly, it's not terrible, it's not bad, especially given some of the deeds that you have access to. So definitely a lot to keep in mind here, but you're definitely going to be focusing overall on improving your dexterity and wisdom scores. And as we discussed, dexterity is that prime stat. It does so much for you, and the fact that this also throws damage in on top of it makes it absolutely paramount for you to focus on. And then wisdom feeding your grit pool as well as shoring up your relatively abysmal will saves, that makes it incredibly useful for you as well, followed up by constitution. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Is this a good start to the Gunslinger guide? Go on down to hit those like or dislike buttons and engage in the comments down below, and we'll have ourselves a good discussion about it. And remember, if you're new here to the channel, then go on down to hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.